Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to The Good Tree, the place inspired by the verse in the Quran of a good word that is like a good tree, whose roots are firm and branches reach great heights. You are joined by your hosts today, myself Fizza and Noor.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. This series is all about how we can perfect our morals in all of our relationships. In today's episode, we will be discussing the relationship with the Holy Quran and the Ahlulbayt alayhum as-salam.
We are delighted to have with us today Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi, who is a renowned scholar. Having studied in Qom for several years, he graduated in 1998 with a dual master's in Islamic Studies and Arabic. He has written and translated several books into English, including Kitab al Tawhid, the Book of Divine Unity by Shaykh al Saduq. Sayyid is also currently the head of Majlis Ulema in Europe. Dear Sayyidna, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to The Good Tree.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sayyidna, as you will probably agree, today's topic is quite a large subject area, but the idea behind today's discussion is so we leave with more of an understanding of how to make the Quran and the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam further infused within our lives. So to begin with, could you explain what is our responsibility towards the Quran?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Our first responsibility towards the Holy Quran is to respect the Holy Quran, and secondly, to recite the Holy Quran recitation. And the third responsibility would be to follow the Holy Quran and accept the guidelines of the Holy Quran as the word of God, as a living miracle. And once you accept and understand the Holy Quran, you would truly follow it as the Ahlulbayt want us to follow it. And do not treat it like any other book. It is a living book that witnesses our actions. So treatment with respect is utmost important, and understanding it and practicing it, following it, is the true love of the Holy Quran.
Thank you so much, Sayyidina. That really encapsulates the Quran for us. But how can we adopt it so that we live a Qurani life?
It is extremely important to understand that the Holy Quran is a word of God, and it is the last testament. Therefore, whenever the Holy Quran says, "O you who believe," and it gives an order, then we must pay attention to the order that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us. And when He speaks to us, He wants us to follow the path that He legislates for us. And it is extremely important that we put into practice everything that we read. Some of the greatest scholars said that we have tried to follow and adapt in our life every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe." This is when He wants you to follow a guideline or an order, a command, and that makes us a perfect human being.
Ahsan, thank you so much.
As we know that the Quran is essential for every Muslim, but many of us find it difficult to engage with. So in your opinion, why do you think this is? And do you have any recommendations for those of us that are struggling to read the Quran? Do you have any baby steps, or essentially, how do we introduce the Quran to ourselves?
I think it is very important to understand that the Quran is not like other books. Sometimes you read story books, sometimes you read books which are manuals, or the books which are guidelines, or books which are like novels. So Quran is unlike any other book. In the longer chapters, it starts from one topic, but it switches on to other topics very quickly. Therefore, it is important to remember that it is a book of guidance, and every story which is mentioned in the Holy Quran has a moral, has a lesson for us. Sometimes if you read the stories of the Holy Quran, which have been written by the scholars, then you will understand that there is, in different places of the Holy Quran, different stories have been mentioned, and each one of those stories has a lesson. And then there are verses which are to do with ahkam, or rulings in our lives. There are just over 500 verses that talk about prayers and fasting and hajj and the poor rate. Likewise, there are verses, over 2,700 verses about the hereafter. in the Holy Quran. And then there are many, many hundreds of verses about Allah or the messengers. So therefore, you need to understand that it covers vast number of topics in a very small book, which is only just over 6,000 verses or 600 pages, but it has many, many different lessons. And we need to pay attention to each one of those lessons. And sometimes just reading through the stories of the Holy Quran will give you a better understanding of what topics does he want to cover, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he does not just mention any stories, he mentions the best of the stories and he brings them together into a book where it gives you a guideline for a life.
Thank you so much, Sayyid. You spoke about the Quran, and we know that in the Quran it tells us that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was sent to us as a mercy to mankind, and he was the one who had the great moral character. And it's reported from him that he said, "I was sent to complete the best of morals." Can you tell us what the best of morals are? And how do these morals manifest themselves in our relationships with others and our relationships with other things such as our job or our money, for example?
Okay, it is very important to remember the Holy Prophet ﷺ lived two lives, one in Mecca, the other one in Medina. Now, in Medina is his life amongst Muslims, and in Mecca is his life amongst non-Muslims. In all of those places, he had two very important characteristics, which the Holy Quran throughout it has outlined. Number one was truthfulness. We sometimes hear from practicing Muslims that you can be untruthful to non-Muslims, which is very wrong. The Holy Prophet was known to be truthful amongst non-Muslims. So it is extremely important to be truthful to Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Second, more characteristic of the Holy Prophet from his life is trustworthiness. You have to be trustworthy. You cannot be even untrustworthy to a non-Muslim or a disbeliever. Imam Sajjad al-Islam says that even if Shimr, the murderer of my father Hussein al-Islam, came to me with the weapon that he used to kill my father and gave that to me as an endowment, then I would never be untrustful to that even weapon that was used to kill my father. So a Muslim has to be truthful and trustworthy to Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Secondly, the greatest characteristics by Imam Raza al-Islam of the Holy Prophet ﷺ is his mudaratun nas, to be kind and pleasant even to Muslims and non-Muslims alike. So we always have to be pleasant. And sometimes they say that a smile can make, it is contagious. So even if you go to a person who is sad or always miserable and you smile to them, then they would also start smiling to you. So it is very important that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was always smiling. And the Holy Quran very clearly says, Inna Allaha yuhibbul muhsineen. Indeed, Allah loves the people who are good doers. So ihsan and husn suluk and good manners and ethics are the most praiseworthy to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Holy Quran throughout it tells you the different morals that we have to adapt. And it very clearly says that Allah loves the people who have good conduct. So good conduct is the greatest of the moralities.
Ahsan, thank you so much. And, for example, our relationship with people, I understand, but I think sometimes people are not so sure on how they should behave when it comes to things. And we live in a world full of things right now, so money, possessions. How can we manifest these good morals when it comes to things?
As a Muslim, we have to try and develop 5 relationships. Number one, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a very strong relationship between a believer with their God, with their creator. And that is through prayers, through fasting, through all of ibadat, and through all of muamalat, in all of your acts of worship, and in all of your conducts in this life with other people. So the first and the foremost is with God, your relationship with God. Secondly, with his messenger and his messengers and his divine leaders, the beings that he has sent. So we need to be obedient to them. We need to be respectful to them. And we need to be We need to be in line with their guidelines. Third is with our relatives, parents, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, children, our uncles and aunts, with all of the relatives. So Islam says you have to keep ties with your relatives. You cannot break ties. The fourth is with all other people, with our teachers, friends, and Muslims, non-Muslims, all other humanity. So they all have a responsibility towards us. So you cannot just say, I'm a Muslim, so I only have responsibilities towards my parents and my relatives. No, all other humanity, we must fulfill our responsibilities towards. And the fifth is the environment and all the things and the possessions that we may have. So even the environment has the animals and the plants, they all have responsibilities. You cannot just kill animals for fun, for the sake of it, for hunting. You cannot destroy animals. You cannot destroy fish or any of the animals that we see around us. We have to respect them. And the environment, so the environment itself has responsibilities, the plantation. So the Holy Prophet very clearly says that when you fight your enemies, you must not burn their plantation, because the plantation itself has life. Likewise, water, likewise, the climate. We have responsibilities towards all of these. And then likewise, the possession and work. So there are, I believe, unfortunately, in today's world, no one talks about this. Even Muslims don't talk about it very openly. But we need to develop all the different types of ethics. So work ethics, war ethics, environment ethics. So ethics with everything should be developed. And we must, and that's when the Holy Prophet says that I have come to perfect the morals. So we must have ethics and morals for everything. So I have listed down a whole series of the different jobs and our personal lives where we must have ethics for each one of those. And once we develop, that's how we can live a moral life. Unfortunately, many of us have developed the whole of religion into fiqh. It is our religion is fiqh-based religion. Fiqh is like law. So law, is it legal or illegal? And then there is only black and white, and there are no gray areas. And I believe there are many, many gray areas. Until and unless we develop the morality, we will only be stuck with, well, it was legal, so I've only done which is legal, which is halal. And if my wife doesn't like it, I don't care about it. Or because there is no morality, we have killed morality, and we've just become legal and illegal, and allowed and not allowed. And I think we need to come out of that and try and live a moral life rather than just a legal and illegal life. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it's fascinating, and it really makes me ponder on, how the Prophet lived his life, because I'm sure if he was of the best moral character, then he encompassed this moral character and these ethics with every single aspect of his life and his living and his being. So thank you so much for shedding light on that. I'm actually interested to see this list.
Inshallah, I wanted to be honest, write a book and compile from the verses of the Holy Quran and Hadith, because I went to a session some years back by the previous Archbishop of Canterbury, Robin Williams, and he was invited by the British think tank, Cheltenham House, to deliver a lecture. And the title of the lecture was A New War, Old Ethics. And he came to deliver a lecture that what ethics do we need to follow in war. Someone got up and asked him a question. I was in the hall. And the person asked him, he said, most of the wars are happening in the Middle East, and most of the people living in the Middle East are Muslims. What are the Muslim war ethics? He said, I'm sure they have war ethics, but I don't know any. And I wish I had the chance to speak at the time. I recorded a few programs after that, but so I believe that people should understand the Muslim war ethics, the medical ethics. So there's a whole list of different ethics that we need to cover and write upon to be able to say that Islam covers all the different dimensions. The Holy Prophet ﷺ had said a very beautiful hadith. Every religion has a recognition. You understand, for example, Hinduism through worshipping idols. Every religion has some sort of recognition. And he said the recognition of my religion is morals, is ethics, is akhlaq. And today we don't see that manifest in the lives of Muslims or the pulpit or the religious seminaries, because it is all fiqh based. It is all jurisprudence based. It is all about legal or illegal.
Very powerful words.
Sayyidina, we just want to ask, you said something about following leaders, our divinely appointed leaders. We just wondering, could you explain further to us what is wilaya and why is it so important?
Wilaya is authority or leadership, and we have so many traditions that Bunay al-Islamu ala khamsin. Islam is based on 5 things: as-salat, was-zakat, was-sawm, wal-hajj, wal-wilaya. So the 6th Imam Islam says, many traditions from 5th and 6th Imam, that Islam is based on 5 things: the prayers, the poor rate, the fasting, and hajj and wilaya, authority. And then they say, وَمَا نُودِيَ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ كَمَا نُودِيَ لِلْوِلَايَةِ. Nothing in Islam has been more emphasized than wilaya. So wilaya is authority and wilaya is leadership. And therefore, we must understand that wilaya is not only limited to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has wilaya. Now, it says in philosophy, there is a whole debate that things are vertical or horizontal. So, for example, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It is shirk because they are parallel to each other. It must be vertical. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has authority, has wilaya over even the prophets and the Imams. But the wilaya of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imams is in line with the wilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So wilaya is authority. So Allah's authority, then the Holy Prophets and the Imams, and then the jurists or our parents, people in the society. And for even marriage and disease, for everything there is some authority. And people who rid themselves authority, they want to live a life with no obligations and no responsibilities. We hear about rights, that this is my right, but we don't hear about my responsibilities. So we need to talk about my responsibilities towards Allah, towards the Prophet, towards the Imam, towards the community, towards the society, towards my family members. If I am fulfilling my responsibilities, then I have the right to demand what is my right. But if I keep demanding my rights, but I don't fulfill my duties, then I don't have the right to demand the rights.
So we mentioned the Prophet. Well, first of all, we mentioned the Quran and we mentioned the Prophet. And now we mentioned the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. So can you tell us what our responsibility is towards the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam?
In Nahj al-Balagha, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he was asked, Mawla, what are the responsibilities of people towards the Imam? So he said there are 3 responsibilities of the people towards their Imam, and there are 3 rights of the people. And he said the first responsibility is that they must obey the Imam. Secondly, they must have ma'rifah, understanding. First, understanding. Secondly, obeying. And third, they must not break their allegiance to the Imam. Then you have 3 rights. The first right of the people is that the Imam must guide them. Secondly, he must do intercession for them, shafa'at. And the third right is that whenever they need any help, then the Imam al-Islam should help them. So we believe that even today, the Imam can still help because he has wilayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's really interesting you said that, because my follow-up question was going to be, is our relationship with the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam a two-way relationship? I think oftentimes people feel like the Ahlul Bayt are in a different world, and the way we can kind of build a relationship with them is to learn about their lives and read the ziyarah, visit them, and remember them. But I think it's more than that. I mean, all those things are very good things and very important things. But from what you've just said, it sounds like it is a two-way relationship. Can you expand on that, please?
The relationship has to be a two-way relationship, and they have lived perfect lives for us, and they have left the perfect example, and they are the living Quran. So they are the manifestation of the Holy Quran. They have lived that character. And on top of everything, when we say that we have to pay allegiance to them, it is bay'at, and that is a two-way thing. The person who is paying allegiance is saying that I will be loyal to you, I will be obedient to you, I will never conspire against you. And in return, the Imam al-Islam is not just accepting, okay, you will be loyal to me. He says, okay, if you say obedient to me, then I will guide you, I will lead you, I will help you, and I will intercede for you on the day of judgment. So it is a very strong two-way relationship. It is not that the Imam is in need of the people. It is the people that are in need of the Imam. So one Imam is for the whole of mankind, and he is in every sense better than the whole of mankind. So the Holy Prophet ﷺ is better in truthfulness, in bravery, in his sakhawat, which is basically his generosity. In all of his qualities, the Imam is superior and better in every sense than all of the Ummah. Otherwise, he has no right to be the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah has chosen him for a reason. Allah has chosen them to be our leaders for a reason. And even in this world, when we choose our representatives, let's say you want to choose a representative to go to parliament in Britain, in America, in Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, in all over the world, people say that these people who will be representing us in the parliament, they should have some qualities. So let's say they talk about their education, say they should have some sort of education so they can represent us. They have no criminal background. So all of these different qualities that we talk about, these people who represent us for only 4 years in the parliament, we want all of these qualities. And if Allah says that I want someone to represent me, then imagine someone who represents Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what qualities they must possess. And the knowledge they should have should be of such a level where we look onto the being and we say, yes, this person represents Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the knowledge should be ilm ladunni. So they should have the highest level of knowledge. The character they should have should be infallibility. So if you look at their personal lives, they live to be perfect examples and role models for the whole of humanity.
Ahsant. And we know that our Imam is living right now, our Imam Mahdi Ajalullah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. And we have the very famous tradition from the Prophet that says whoever dies without knowing the Imam of their time or recognizing the Imam of their time dies the death of ignorance. So we spoke about this two-way relationship, but how do we build this two-way relationship with an Imam who is very much alive and present?
It is extremely important to understand that when the Holy Prophet ﷺ says, "Man mata wa lam ya'rif imam zamanihi, mata min al-jahiliyyah." Anyone, this is in Sahih, this is in Musnad Ahmad bin Hanbal as well, and Shia Sunni books. Whoever dies without recognizing the Imam of his time has died the death of ignorant. What does it mean? Knowing the Imam, recognizing. Is it knowing the person, knowing his name, knowing his father's name, knowing his mother's name, knowing his place of birth, knowing his date of birth? Is it just knowing the person or knowing the personality? What does he represent? Who does he represent? Why is he so important? What makes him the Imam? Why was he chosen? What system does he represent? What system does he want implemented? So it is extremely important to realize that knowing the name and knowing the person is not sufficient enough. Otherwise, so many disbelievers know his name, his father's name, his mother's name, and so many disbelievers who don't even believe in God know that there is some sort of hidden Imam that the Shias believe in, who has all of these qualities. So it is extremely important to, the true understanding makes you believe in the being. When you truly believe or truly understand God, then you believe in him. You accept him. Likewise, many people may know about the Imam. Knowing about the Imam is not good enough. To know the Imam so much so that you love him, you respect him, and you believe in him. You believe in him so much so that you accept that he is representative of God and he is a divine leader. He is the divine Imam. And knowing all of those qualities makes you a true believer, not just saying, I know of him, but I truly understand. Well, no one can truly understand him. But to understand, for example, Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Bahjat was asked by a student, when you tell us to talk to our Imam, does he really listen to us? Does he hear us? So Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Bahjat said, when you ask this question, before I hear it, the Imam heard this question. And when I'm answering your question, before you hear my answer, the Imam heard my answer. He is Udhunullah al-Wa'iyah. He is the hearing ear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he says in the Holy Quran, there is someone who is Yadullah, who is hand of Allah, or Ainullah, the eye of Allah, or Lisanullah, the tongue of Allah, or Jambullah, or all of these words. Allah is not a body or a shape or a form or a texture or a line or a dot. He is above all of those. So there is a creation that he has made, and he has called them Yadullah, the hand of Allah, meaning the power of God. Ainullah, if they see something and they like it, then that thing becomes Radiyallah. So it is extremely important that we understand the true sense of the divine Imam alayhi salam.
Ahsant. And how can we build a relationship with him on a more personal level, in a practical way?
You always overlook someone who doesn't recognize you. Sometimes many people, when they see me or meet me, they say that, well, I don't want you to be just a person who speaks. I want you to know me. I want you to, they want a personal relationship. It is extremely important for all of us to realize that when you read the books of Hadith, it says that anyone who visits Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Imam Hussain alayhi salam knows each one of his za'ir, each one of his visitors by their name, with their family background, and he understands each one of his visitors. Likewise, when we talk to the Imam alayhi salam, we don't have a personal relationship because we think, well, who am I? He doesn't know me. It is so important to realize that he knows each one of you by your name and who you are, what's your family background, what is your capacity, what are your potentials. He knows each one of you as you are, as one of you would know the other. In fact, better than the two friends know each other. That's how well he knows you. So when you think, oh, who am I to the Imam? No. When you think that I'm only a dot in this universe, Allah doesn't know me. Allah knows each one of you better than you yourself, better than your friends, better than your mothers, better than your brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts. That's how the Imam alayhi salam knows you. So to think that, well, who am I? Then, there are 400 million Shias in this world. There are almost 8 billion people in this world. I promise you by God, the Imam alayhi salam knows you better than you yourself, better than the closest family members to you, better than your best friends. He knows you better. And therefore, it is important to remember that when he knows you so well and he loves you so much, and I'm not even worthy of his love, I'm not even worthy of him knowing me, then you would love him even more. That if he cares about me and loves me so much. There's a story that a person said to his friend that I'm going to visit Imam Ali Naqi Islam, Imam Ali al-Hadi. He said, oh, are you going to the Imam? He said, yes. He said, are you going to be visiting the city he's living in? He said, yes. He said, can you please ask the Imam to pray for me? Can you please ask the Imam to remember me? I'm really worried and I'm going through a tough time in my life. I'm very much concerned about my life. Can you please ask the Imam? So the person said, okay, I'll mention you to him. So the person went to the Imam al-Islam and he talked about different things. And he said, these are the akhmas of the people, the khums people have sent, these are the donations. And this person has sent you a ring. This person has sent you this. And he said, oh, Maula, there was a person in my hometown. And he said, can you mention me to the Imam? The Imam smiled and he said, when you go back, tell the person, when was I unaware of you that you need to mention yourself to your friend to remember me? And he said, if you ever have any wish, فَحَرِّكْ شَفَتَيْكَ, just move your lips. You don't need to be living with me in my town for me to know you. I know you where you live. And when you are worried, I become concerned. So I know each one of you as individuals. I'm not just like other politicians where there is no personal relationship. So we all are known to our Imams, and it is extremely important to remember that he loves each one of us as we are.
SubhanAllah. In terms of our relationship with the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam, is there anything we can do on a daily basis that we can enhance our relationship with them?
Well, first of all, we should always read salawat and send salutations and blessings upon them. That is the best thing we can do. It is one of the most important things that will be beneficial in this world and the hereafter. There are three things that have no side effects. You know, just like medicine, when you eat a medicine, you have side effects. Likewise, there are certain things you read and do that may have side effects. But three things, no matter how much you do, have no side effects. They only benefit you in this world and the hereafter. Number one, the Holy Quran. The more you read it, the more beneficial for you in this world and the hereafter. Number two, salawat. As much as you read it, it will benefit you in this world and the hereafter. And number three, istighfar. Astaghfirullah rabbi atubu ilayh. Repentance. It has no side effect whatsoever. It will always benefit you. So it is very important to read salutations and salawat upon the Holy Prophet and his holy progeny. Secondly, to read a short ziyarat. If you can read, long ziyarat, very good. And if you can't, just read a short ziyarat. And third, talk to them. They listen to you. When you talk to them, say Assalamu alaikum, for example, I don't know, whoever you want to, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, Assalamu alaikum Amir al-Mu'mineen, Assalamu alaikum ya Fatima Zahra, or whoever you want to talk to them. First of all, send salutations, send salam to them, and then start talking to them. And always be in the state of wudu when you want to talk to them, or sit, like nicely. And so don't just make a mockery. No, be serious. When you talk to them, they are listening to you. So let's face their haram. Let's talk to them, even just for 5 minutes. Some great scholars, they say that in our life, whatever we have achieved is through talking to the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam at least once a week. So on every Friday or Thursday or whenever you can, talk to them and build a personal relationship. They always listen to you. You can share your problems. You don't need to go to a psychologist. They are the greatest psychologists. They are the greatest psychiatrists. They are the greatest doctors. I remember a person, he was a convert, and he came to me and he said, Sayyid, I have a son, and my son has become about 1.5 or 2 or something like that. And they gave him some bread to eat. And the son reacted. So they quickly called and the ambulance, and they took him to the hospital, and they said, your son has, the wheat allergy. What did they call it?
Gluten.
Gluten allergy. So, they will not be able to eat wheat all their life. So no wheat products. They said, well, we are Asians and we always have wheat in our food. They said, well, you can't feed your son any wheat products. He said, I'm really upset. So he was a convert, and he said, how come, I've left everything, I've left every evil thing. And why, how come my son? So I'm trying to convince him. He said, oh, Sayyid, someone told me that I should take my son to Imam Raza alayhi salam, and on his sufra, on the sarkhan of Imam Raza alayhi salam, you can eat food and then they become cured. So when he said that to me, and, I became really concerned, I said, he's a convert. The son is not cured. He may go back. So I said, yes, miracles happen, but, sometimes miracles don't happen. He said, why are you saying this? Aren't you Sayyid? Aren't you from the progeny of Imam Raza alayhi salam? I said, I am. He said, then you shouldn't be doubting. I said, I'm not doubting. He said, no, you shouldn't be saying things like that. I said, I'm not, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but, many people go and some people are cured. And he said, no, my son will be cured. I said, inshallah. But, you should. He said, no, you please get me the visa, and I want to go and visit Imam Raza alayhi salam with my family. And so they went, and 2 weeks later, he came back and he phoned me. He said, Sayyid, I just want to bring some gift to you. I said, okay. So he phoned me and I said, when do you want to come? He said, oh, whenever you're free. I said, okay. Is everything okay? He said, yes. So I said, everything fine? He said, yes. So I kept asking, everything okay? He said, what do you want to ask? So I said, do you know what I want to ask? He said, I may. I said, please, if you do, then tell me the answer. So he said, my son is cured. So I was so happy for him. And he said, I want to come and visit. So he brought me some sohan halwa and everything, from few years later, he said, oh, I have a second son and he has a gluten allergy as well. I said, okay. He said, so what have you decided? He said, I'm going to go to Imam Raza alayhi salam again. I said, it happened the first time, and, it may not happen the second time. So just He said, are you doubting again? I said, I'm not doubting. I'm just saying that, you should be mentally prepared. And he said, no, the miracle is going to happen again. And so he went again, and again, he, on the Sufra of Imam Raza Islam, he picked up the bread and he fed his son. And he came back, and, the doctor, his GP, asked him, where did you go? Your son was born with an allergy that cannot be cured. He said, I went to a big doctor in Iran. He said, can you tell me his name? He said, his name is Imam Raza. He said, where is his practice? Can you give me more information? What medicine did he give you? He said, he gave bread to my son. He said, are you serious? And that cured your son? And you want me to put this down in the medical records? He said, yes, can you do this? He said, I'm not going to put anything like that in the medical records. You went to a doctor in Iran who gave bread to your son and your son is cured. It is that personal relationship with the Imam alayhi salam that is needed sometimes people like me who are born Shias, who are born in the household of the Holy Prophet, and the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam who are born with the belief in the Imams alayhi salam, sometimes, we need to strengthen our bonds with the Imams. And sometimes people who come from outside, they build that relationship faster than us. And they excel in their faith so strongly that you think, hang on, where am I and where has this guy gone?
Absolutely. I mean, I think sometimes we have these gems right in front of our eyes and we're not taking advantage of them. We mentioned the Quran in the beginning. The Quran, like you said, it's not a normal book. It's this, I don't even know, I don't have the words to describe it, but it's a diamond that we're not taking advantage of. And I think, like you said, especially those of us who have grown up with it, we tend to just, okay, someone is ill, we recite the khatma for them, we want to read as quickly as we can just to get through it and, send the thawab for that person, which is very good. But how many of us are actually putting the effort in to learn how to recite the Quran properly? I mean, even though I come from an Arab background, a lot of my community don't know how to pronounce the Quran properly because everyone pronounces it with their kind of accent that they've picked up along the way. We teach Quran tajweed. The first thing we do is teach the makharij of all the letters, how you pronounce each letter. And you find that Arab, non-Arab, Pakistani, Khoja, wherever they come from, they all have letters that they struggle with. But how important is it that we put emphasis on this, the recitation of the Quran correctly? And then after that, understanding the meanings of the words, so learning Arabic. When we look at some of our Sunni brothers and sisters, they learn Arabic very well. They go and study in Al-Azhar and they come back speaking Arabic. There are all sorts of Arabic courses online. They speak Arabic very well and they understand the Quran very well. How important is it that we strengthen our Arabic, being Arab or non-Arab? It doesn't really make a difference, so that we can understand the words of the Quran properly, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think you can see where I'm going with this. There are so many points of action that we need to take as individuals. We don't need to wait for anyone to come and do it for us. It's an individual obligation. I mean, when we have young children, there's so much emphasis on them memorizing Quran, memorize and recite in front of a crowd, memorize and recite in front of a crowd. But how important is it that they're memorizing with benefit? So these words, because when they grow up, they forget all these memorized surahs. I know I used to know surahs that I've completely forgotten now. When you read them, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this, but I don't remember them as well as I should do. If you can shed a bit more light on how much we need to work on understanding the Quran.
If you look at the words of Imam alayhi salam, where he says, Haqqul waladi ala al-walid, and the rights of children upon their father or parents. And the first thing he says, and yuhassina isma, they should give their children a good name. The children deserve a good name. And the second right he mentions is wa an yu'allamahu al-Quran, and that the children should be taught the Quran. So now that includes recitation, understanding the meanings, the tafsir. So knowing the Quran, if let's say the Prime Minister or the Queen wrote a letter to you, addressing you, you would open it every morning and say, oh, the Prime Minister or the Queen wrote a letter to me. And even if you did not read it every day because you had memorized it, you would have a look at it. So just having a look at, oh, this is the letter that I received. And if God himself, Allah has written to you and he addressed you and he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, this is a book for you. Oh, you who believe, this Quran is for you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if you can't read, then at least have it open and have a look at the letter from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Holy Quran. The only book having a look at the Holy Quran is rewardful. Reading it is rewardful. Listening to it is rewardful. No other book. Only when you read and understand it, you get reward. But the Holy Quran, even if you hear it, you see it, you have a look at it, you read it, all are rewardful. And when you understand it, it is more rewardful. And when you practice it, it is even more rewardful. So don't just treat it like any other book. It is a living miracle. And sometimes, people think it is paper and ink. It is not paper and ink. Bal huwa nurun. It is a living light. I'm not sure, I haven't come across a tradition on this, but my grandfather was a scholar, and he used to always say that, when people take oath on the Holy Quran, he said, the Quran which is never read, if a person takes an oath on it, they will never be punished. But if a Quran is regularly read by people, and if a person takes a false oath, they will be punished straight away. Because the Quran wants to be read, it wants to be heard, it wants to be seen. So just looking at the Holy Quran, the words, you look at any other book, but you see, because our hearts are so darkened, sometimes we don't feel it. But when you feel clean in the month of Ramadan and you just look and stare at the Holy Quran, you feel there is something you're looking at. When looking at certain things is ibadat, looking at the Kaaba is ibadat, looking at your parents is ibadat, look at the face of Ahlulbayt or Ali ibn Abi Talib especially is ibadah. All of these things, and looking at the Holy Quran, another ila al-mushaf ibadah. Why is it ibadat? Look, because of, when the doctors say, go and see the running water or go and see greenery, it increases your eyesight and it takes away your stress and depression. Many doctors treat you differently. Different depressions are treated. The Holy Quran treats your depression. Just have a look at the Holy Quran. Look at the beautiful writing of the Holy Quran. It is not just ink and paper. It is a living book. There is a hadith that says on the Day of Judgment, when the Holy Quran appears in front of all the people of Mahshar, the people will say, Ya Allah, who is this so handsome and so beautiful? Allah will say, introduce yourself. Who are you? They said, we've never seen anything so beautiful in the dunya, in this world. What is this? Allah will say, introduce yourself. He will say, I was in every one of your house. I lived with you. I'm the Holy Quran. I'm so beautiful. You never knew. You never really paid attention to me. I was so beautiful. The words, the pronunciation, the recitation, the meaning, each word demands us to pay attention to it. Each letter of the Holy Quran, when you touch it with the, when people have pain, sometimes you say, okay, we'll do wudu and just touch the writing. I sometimes feel that I'm taking something from the Holy Quran. There was a great scholar. His name was Shaykh Hassan Ali Nakhud Ki Isfahani. He lived in Mashhad. Towards the end of his life, he had lost his sight. And the people, they made it famous that even then he could tell when you place the Quran in front of him that this is the Holy Quran. So a journalist from Tehran got up who was very secular. He said, I don't believe in religion. What is he? And if he's blind, then how can he see? So he copied a verse from the Holy Quran. Then he wrote a hadith, then an ayat from the Holy Quran. Then couplet, from Hafiz, like a poet, a famous Iranian poet. He wrote a couplet from him. Then he wrote a verse from the Holy Quran. Then he placed a cutting from the newspaper that he was journalist in. And he said, okay, let me, so first of all, he went inside and he tested him, like he placed the hand, and when a person is blind and you clap or do something in front of them, they quickly, they move, or a person who can see, they will, if you do this, they'll blink. So he tested him to see if he was truly blind. When he was satisfied that, yes, this man is blind, then he said, okay, can you tell me if there is a verse of the Holy Quran here? So he looked and he said, this is a verse, this is a verse, this is a verse, and this is a verse. He said, when you can't see, how can you tell? He said, are you blind? Can't you tell? These are verses of the Holy Quran. He said, I'm not blind, I can tell, but if you are blind, then how can you tell that these are verses? He said, have you not read the Holy Quran? The Quran says, Quran is Noor. The things that are shining are verses. I can just tell by the shine.
Subhanallah.
Can we sometimes, look deeper into the Holy Quran and build a spirituality where we can touch and feel, where we can see and feel, where we read and feel it in our heart rather than just on our tongue and in our ears? Let's try and feel the Holy Quran in our hearts. Let the Holy Quran touch our souls. And let the Holy Quran enter our minds. When Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba says that if a young person reads the Holy Quran, the Quran starts running in his bloodline and starts to affect him if he truly understands the Holy Quran. And it has that impact. And I truly believe that the Holy Quran has that impact if you truly listen to it.
Absolutely beautiful words. I mean, you've given me goosebumps and really inspired me to pick up the Quran much more. Inshallah, we can inspire everyone listening.
Inshallah, for sure. Sayyidina, just before we end for today's podcast, although I feel like we can talk for a very long time on this topic, it's absolutely mesmerizing. Thank you. What practical tips could you leave us with that will encourage us to read the Quran even more, like more than what you've said? Like, what could we do? And build a closer relationship with the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam?
I always encourage the people to start with the short surahs. So read the last 37 surahs, which are basically the last juz or the last part. So there are 30 parts of the Holy Quran. Start with the last parts, which are mainly from Mecca. So they talk about the hereafter. They talk about certain stories, and read the commentary. So first read the translation and then read them again with the commentary. And secondly, pick up books where scholars have written stories of the Holy Quran. So what are the stories? Why has Allah mentioned certain stories? What is the wisdom behind those stories? And then the parables. I really like the parables, like little. So for example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about hypocrisy, he says, as if they're walking in dark nights, and as there is lightning in the dark nights, they suddenly are shocked because of. So each one of those parables, the parables of the Holy Quran. For example, he talks about a great scholar who was very unpracticing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Masaluhu kamasalil kal in tatrukhu yalhath." His example is like of that of a dog. If you pet the dog, still has a tongue out, and if you leave the dog, it still has the tongue out. So why is God giving those examples? Why does He give that parable? Each one of the parables of the Holy Quran. I wish someone could just compile a whole book from the parables of the Holy Quran. And just one line parables of the Holy Quran has so much deep message that if you keep thinking, you can just stay awake a whole night thinking, why did God choose this example? And it makes you think on all of those. So the Holy Quran is a living book. When you read literature, you can very quickly define it to a time frame. Oh, this is medieval history. This is literature from Victorian time. This is literature from this era, that era. You can just read the language and say, this is from so-and-so time. When you read the Arabic, you can very quickly say the Arabic literature, oh, this is pre-Islamic, oh, this is Islamic, oh, this is medieval. But when you read the Holy Quran, you can't give it timeline because it is word of God. It is as if it is fresh. It is from now. It is for you. It is for me. It is for now. It lives with you. It teaches you how to live your life.
Ahsan, thank you so much, Sayyid. And how about the Ahlulbayt? What are the practical tips I know we already covered this a bit, but just something to leave those listening inspired with. What practical tips can we build a relationship that's closer to the Ahlulbayt, inshallah?
If you ask the Ahlulbayt, they say that we have lived the greatest example of patience. In every step of their life, they have patience. Imam al-Islam says, "As-sabru min al-iman kar-ra's min al-jasad." Patience is to faith like head is to body. If you look at the lives, 250 or 260 years of the life of the Ahlulbayt alayhimus salam, they, from the Holy Prophet to Imam Mahdi, they have lived the greatest examples of patience in their personal life, in their treatment with the governments, with the people, in every aspect of their life. And I think if we just look at the different examples from their life of patience, we can modify our lives. We can transform the lives that we are living just by looking at the examples from the Ahlul Bayt. And before the battery of my device dies, I want to just mention one example where Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salam, when he is in the prison, the king said, go and listen to what he's saying. Does he give messages to people? Does he pray against me because I've imprisoned him? The person who was in charge of the prison came back and said to the Khalifa, to Harun al-Rashid, he said, I have heard him pray, O Allah, how shall I thank you enough? I wanted to be isolated with you. I wanted time alone with you. You have given me such a time with you that there is no one but you and there is no one but I.
I think his battery must have died.
Not to worry.
That's okay. I think he gave us so much inspiration there. And I love the fact that he spoke about parables, because the reason why we called ourselves the good tree is because of the parable of the good words being like a good tree. So thank you, Sayyid, so much. I'm sure he will hear this, inshallah. Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's episode, but we want to extend our thanks to him for such a great and inspirational podcast and for making time to discuss this very important topic with us.
Definitely. I think there's a lot that we can take from that. I know personally I have. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you very much, Sayyid. Also to all of you, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to leave us a comment on our social media handles, and to find out more, please visit our website, thegoodtree.faith.
Till next week, fi amanillah.
Join us next week where we discuss relationship with ourselves with Sheikh Mirza Abbas.